Alrighty. Okay, so today's kind of a special episode. Today's episode is actually not about Teeworlds and not about coding. Wow, I did do some similar episode already, didn't I? That reminds me of something. Anyways, today I wanted to quickly mention a tool called Git that we already kind of worked with, and I want to show you what it can do. It's for like version control, so that you have a little bit more overview of your changes that you did to the code. And I think it's a super awesome tool that can help you a lot, and the sooner you get in, the more you get out of it, I guess. And there are plenty of Git basic tutorials out there, but I kind of wanted to mention it here to force you guys to interact with it. So let's get done some basics. You all have Git installed, I hope, if you followed my compiling tutorials. So type into your terminal or in Windows into your command prompt or wherever, type in Git and see if you get a wall of text, and then it's good. If you get something like command not found Git, that's bad. On Windows there's also a program called Git Bash. Maybe there you have to command Git. Then you want to navigate with your terminal or command prompt or however you want to call it to your source directory, so that you are where I am right now. So this is like our current source directory here. You can on Windows, if you have the file explorer open, you can shift and right click and then open a terminal. I think it's PowerShell nowadays, but you should also have a Git exposed in your PowerShell if it's installed properly. If not, maybe you have the option here that says open Git Bash here, then you definitely have a Git command in there. Okay, so now that we are in this directory, let's get right into it. Okay, so a first nice command would be git space status, which shows you the current status of your changes. And as you can see, it says here in red, that's the interesting part. You can ignore all the noise here. The red part is interesting. It says I modified those files. Server.cpp, gamecontext.cpp, gamecontroller.cpp, and this is a bit of leftovers from the last few episodes. It's not all the changes I made in the series, but like from the last few episodes I have a bit of changes flying around here. And Git tells us what we changed, so that's super nice. You can see that in Git status. Okay, if you want a more detailed view on those changes, you can do git space diff. And as you can see down here, depending on how big your screen and how big your diff is, you will have a colon here. That means you can scroll, and it might work with your scroll wheel. It doesn't work in my case. So if that scroll wheel doesn't work, you can use your arrow keys on the keyboard to go up and down. And you can press Q to quit. So that's a common command line thingy. If you have a colon there, that means you can scroll with arrow keys, quit with Q. And another useful feature is if you type in a slash, you can search for a string. So for example, if I would type in server, I get those occurrences of server highlighted, and then I can press N to go to the next occurrence and shift N to go to the previous occurrence. Okay, cool. So let's have a look. Let's scroll through here. You can see that it highlights in green prefix with a plus the lines that we added to the code. And as you remember from the last episodes, that's the reading code we introduced, and it's here highlighted in green. And it's surrounded by white code so that we can see where contextually it was put in. Right, and you can always see here in which file we are, and also in which function we are. We are in onMessage, and in onMessage in gamecontext.cpp we added after the if statement type say, we added this code. This was our traditional chat system, the old school way, and we removed this line, and yeah, things like that. Well, actually we didn't remove this line, we moved it, but we removed it from here and we added it here. Okay, but there's only remove and add, so move is represented by one remove and one add, if that makes any sense. It's just a div with lines being added and deleted. Okay, cool. I think that's super helpful, especially if you are a beginner and, for example, you try to build the project and you have a build error. And maybe you don't want to debug it and you said like, I didn't even change something, blah, blah, blah. You can always look up, hey, git status, did I make some changes? And then you can go like git diff, oh, I didn't remember that I added some line here, I don't even need that, and then you can remove the line or something like that. Git can really help you to keep track of like unwanted changes, for example. Okay, so that's that. Then you have another command that is called git space log, which shows you the commit history. And commits are like changes. So if you finished working on your code, you can give your change a name and a description and call it a commit. And if you properly cloned the Teeworlds code as a Git repository and not downloaded it as a zip file, you should have the history of all the Teeworlds development in here. So if you do git log, you can see down here we have this colon again, which means we can press Q to quit and get out of it, or we can search with a slash, or we can use the up and down arrows to scroll this history. Okay, so how does it look like? We have those commit hashes up here. Commits are just uniquely identified by some hash. That's how it is. That's their address, so to say. Then we have the author who created that commit, and then when it was created, and then we have a description down here. Those are all merge requests. That's a bit fancy. Maybe go down to some more basic commit down here. So Robert Müller commented on Friday that the comment description is fixed size of label scrollbar handle. And that's super cool because you can see who did what and when, and without reading any code. That is pretty neat in my opinion. And we can also copy this commit hash here and then have a closer look, and we can do git show and then this commit hash, and then we see again Robert Müller, fixed size of label scrollbar handle, and down here we have the actual diff that we already saw in git diff, but now it's not our diff, now it's the diff of this change. So this dude changed the ui.cpp file and he removed this line and added this line. As I said, there's no concept of like edits or moving lines, so this line was essentially edited. I see a difference here, so this 8 was replaced by a 3, but since you can only display like lines being removed and added, it looks like one line was removed and another one was added, if that makes any sense. And same down here, so I can see a difference between this 8 and this 3. Okay, so that's how you can analyze the history of Teeworlds and yeah, see the changes. So by the way, if we go on GitHub, github.com/teeworlds/teeworlds, we can also see those commits over here. So if we click here on commits, we have the same git log, and there we recognize the comment we looked at closer. It's fixed size of labeled scrollbar. We can open that, and here we see the changes. And the GitHub web browser even highlights the 8 and the 3 a bit nicer than in the terminal. As you can see, it was changed especially here. Yeah, so that is those are the same commits, but like represented on a website and not in your terminal. Cool. Okay, so now let's create our own first commit based on the changes that we have so far. If you have no changes, feel free to edit just something in the source code so that you have something marked as modified in git status. Okay. Maybe one more concept before we dive into committing, because we don't want to commit directly on the master branch. We want to create our own branch. Now you might wonder, oh, what the fuck are branches? Okay, there's this concept of branches. The default branch in Teeworlds is called master. That's pretty common, like a lot of projects have their main branch called master. Nowadays, people also like to call them main due to some Black Lives Matters and terms master and slave being removed from software to reduce racism. So if you see master or main, that's usually like the main or master branch, where all the code is being pushed to, and that's also the code that is then being used to create the release of the client and server that you guys love and play. But there are also different branches. If we click on branches on GitHub here, we can see that we have in Teeworlds right now, for example, a branch for 0.6 and a branch for the editor. Okay, let me quickly visualize how those branches work. So we have this main branch here, which is called master in our case. So this line represents the master branch. And on this line, we have now some commits, and those commits are represented by these circles. So that's the history of our master branch with all those commits. And then at some point, we introduced a commit that broke the protocol. So from this commit on, 0.7 starts. So a client built with this commit cannot join a server at this commit. So that's when we created the branch 0.6. And what this allows us is that it allows us to continue working on the master branch, which is 0.7, so we can have more 0.7 features and protocol breaking changes on here. And if we at some point realize that there's a missing hotfix for 0.6, even though the development already moved on to the new version, we can still put commits on here and then create a security release for 0.6 and even another one based on that commit, and we can create another security fix. And then we can do a release of this branch, which then only holds those commits without the 0.7 stuff. And in parallel, we can work on 0.7. And then at some point in time, it was decided that there is a editor branch. And then we branch off again. Editor. So now we have a bunch of people working on a new editor here, starting the editor layout, whatever. A few more editor changes, and this branch now holds a different editor that is unfinished. And on the master branch we have some editor unrelated commits, maybe working on the server, whatever, and that allows us to have a branch where all people can commit together and work on the editor. And when this editor is then finished, we can merge this branch back into the master branch, which then takes all those commits and puts them on the master branch. But during the development of the editor, the master branch still has a fully functional old editor. So that's pretty cool, huh? And now what we are doing, we go here and we create our own branch, and that branch is called my_mod, for example, or however we want to call it. And this allows us to create our own commits down here, create more commits, keep working on our modification, and at some point we can update our master branch that got more commits. We can like fetch those from GitHub with a git pull. I will show that in a future episode. So here we have all those new commits, and then we can take the master branch. If we want to get all the features from the upstream, what the Teeworlds developers coded for us, and merge them down into our branch. So now we get all the commits that happened in the same time as we were working on our modifications on the Teeworlds upstream source code, and we move them into our branch. And then we can keep on working here, and we can merge as often as we want. If they create new commits over here, we can merge them down again, and so on. I hope that makes some sense. And the reason why we use our own branch is that the master branch is always up to date with the upstream of Teeworlds. So it would be a little bit more messy and conflicting if we also put our commits down here and then we want to get like the upstream commits on the same branch, and then it has a different history and then it all breaks. Cool. So how do we create a branch? We do git branch and then the name of the branch. Or what I like to do is do a git checkout space -b to create a branch and directly switch to it, because there's a difference between creating a branch and like switching to a branch, and this step does it all in once. Okay, so let's do both ways so that you've seen them. How are we calling our branch? Let's call it mymod. Now we created a branch called mymod, and if we do git status, we can see in the on the top that we are still on the branch master. And now to change to the branch mymod, we do git checkout mymod. And now if we do git status, we can see we are on the branch mymod. Cool. And if we go back to the master branch, and if we do like git branch -D, we can delete the branch again. Wonderful. Okay, so if we want to do it all in one step, we can do git checkout -b mymod, which will create a branch and then switch to it. Cool. So that's how you create a branch. Pretty basic, huh? Okay, so now we want to create a commit on this branch. So let's have a look again at the diff that we made, so we can see what those changes are that we are giving a title right now. And we can see it's the code from the last episodes. It's here reading and writing files, and then it's here a chat system. Okay, then let's do git add and dot. Git add will mark those files for a commit. So like you mark all the files that you want to put into the commit. And the dot stands for the current directory. So we kinda mark all files that we edited for our commit, as opposed to providing a specific file path, which we can also do if I do git add source game server game context.cpp and then git status again. You can see this one is now green. So if we do git add, the file becomes green and is like marked for the commit. If we do now git commit, we create a commit only with the changes in game context.cpp, but we want to pick up all the files, and instead of writing git add source game server game controller.cpp and game controller.h in the server, we can just git add dot, which will pick up the current directory and all changes that are made. Cool. So if we do git status again, you can see everything is green. Okay. And then we do git commit. This should open a editor depending on your git configuration. Maybe it even opens Vim. Vim can be intimidating. I don't know if it's default anywhere, but in case you are in a similar place like I am right now, and you can't really type something in here, or it's behaving a bit weird, then you're probably in Vim. And if you are here, you can press I to go in insert mode and then write a commit description. And then you press escape, and then you press :W, Q for write and quit. But this editor can be a bit intimidating. So let's change the editor real quick and do git config -- global, I think. core.editor. Yes, okay. Let's clean it up a bit. So if you do git config -- global core.editor, you can see in my case it's Vim, but if you want to change it, you can change it to VS Code. So you want to put in code in quotes and also provide the flag wait. So the code editor waits for you. That's just needed by Git, that your code editor does not detach. Okay, so let's try that. And let's try changing the commit message, because now if we do git log, we can see Chiller Dragon just committed a comment with the description, commit description. That's very detailed, nice. So let's press Q to go out here. And if you want to change your commit's description, you can do git commit -- amend. Okay. And now, since I changed the configuration from Vim to VS Code, VS Code is now being opened. So maybe that's a little bit less confusing for you guys. You can also put any other editor in there, but make sure if it's some detaching editor that you provide some flag that it does not detach, otherwise stuff breaks. Okay, so let's go over this real quick. As you can see, those green lines here are comments, so they won't be picked up in the actual comment message. Those are just for you, so you can see, hey, what am I commenting here? So those files got changed. How do I want to call this change? And now we are going to put in some comment description saying like added file IO and chat system. That would kind of describe what those changes are. Make sure that your first line is not too long. If you want to write a bigger wall of text, add one empty line here, and then you can like do a lorem ipsum here. I don't have any plugin for that, but you can do a long as text down here, and just don't do it in the first line, because the first line is kind of special. It will be displayed in some short versions, and this bigger text down here will only be displayed if there's enough space, if you want to like get all the details. Okay, so that's that, and now we can save the file and then close the editor. And as you can see, it updated the commit. So if we do git log again, you can see my commit description updated. We have the short version here and the long description here. Okay, cool. So now if we do git status again, you can see all those changed files are gone again, because we put them into a commit and now we don't have any pending changes anymore. If we were to now mess around in the source code, we get changes again. So let's go into the server and add a empty line in here. And if we now do git status, we can see that we changed that file. And if we do git diff, we can see that I added a empty line in here in a lot of spaces. Looks very ugly. Cool. So maybe one more command if you have like changes that you want to delete. For example, you want to reset to the last commit. You can do git reset --hard, which will delete all the current pending changes that are displayed in git status and git diff. So if you have only chunk in git diff, like we do right now, and you want to revert that, you can do git reset hard. So let's do that. Git reset -- hard head. Bam. Okay, so if we now do git status again, everything is clean, and we reverted that line that we added. As you can see, it's gone now. Cool. By the way, I'm using a extension here called git lens supercharged, that you can find in the extensions menu if you're using Visual Studio Code. That will display in here in the light in the light text the commit, and if you hover over it, there you can see that's me. I committed 6 minutes ago, and the commit description if we hover over this text here. And that's kind of cool because you can see who did what when browsing the source code. You don't need that. That's just maybe something to note. What I'm using here, what I think is kind of cool. So we can see this code was introduced like 7 years ago by Heinrich, right? Stuff like that. Cool. Anyways, so that is pretty much it for the basics of Git. So I recommend you guys, if you follow along with the series, to occasionally commit your changes. If you feel like you finished some type of feature, maybe after watching every episode, and if you followed along, just commit something like I did that and that today, and then you develop some kind of sense of the changes in your source, and it will be really nice. Trust me, it's a bit painful in the beginning, but it's totally worth the effort. Yes. Okay, so have fun with that. See you in the next episode.